Thank you for tuning in to the Julixa Media Podcast. I'm your host, Julixa, and today we have Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse, a Baltimore firefighter turned real estate investor with a multi-million-dollar portfolio. Thank you for joining us, Ian.
Yeah, Julixa, I'm so glad to jump on. I know might be a good virtual one just because when this is being recorded, we got all the Canadian wildfires and it's a little weird outside right now, but hey, it brings me back to my past and makes me feel good right at home.
I was just thinking that this morning. I'm like, how ironic that I'm going to be on the show with Ian, former firefighter, and now it's all smoky outside.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your amazing journey? Start from the very beginning.
Well, about 40 years ago, my parent. No, it's quite the journey. As you guys know, me and Julixa go back a little bit, so I'm going to be very comfortable. So hopefully, it's good for your audience. But no, seriously, my business partner and I, we really wanted to be firemen. That was our passion. We grew up volunteering. It was something that was near and dear to us, and we grew up outside of Philadelphia, and we couldn't work for the city of Philadelphia. You couldn't even take the test to get the job unless you moved there. And I wasn't really too keen
Wow.
on moving down there. I wasn't really probably mature enough. So whatever. So look, some time goes by. A couple of my friends get hired in Baltimore. So, well, that seems like a great idea. I kind of had a little bit of a rough past. My dad had passed away, and I really needed something to give me something to structure in my life. And five of us who grew up outside of Philadelphia wound up becoming firemen for the city of Baltimore. And it was probably one of the best life-changing experiences. And I thought I had made my dream job. And, when you look at the core root of it, it is the best thing that I could do. I really enjoy helping people. It's the best adrenaline rush that you could ever get. But with that being said, very early on, we hired in 07 and 08. And that's the height of the financial crisis. And, a lot of things happened, and we can get into that in a second. But, pensions got blown up. We got furloughed. They were closing companies. It was all this stuff. And I was like, I got to do something different. And I stumbled on real estate. And that's kind of just the path that we took that allowed us 10 years later to retire from our jobs early or quit, however you want to say it. But we were able to leave our jobs early and go pursue real estate full time. So, following one passion led us down to another passion. And it's been a really fun journey.
That is absolutely amazing. So you were a victim of circumstances, but it worked out for you.
Yeah, most people are too afraid, and I know I kind of breezed through this story, and I'm happy to really dive into it. But most people are too afraid to swing the bat, right? Because here I
Yeah.
was, I'm 25. My life's kind of in shambles. Luckily, my now wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, gave me a good support system that allowed me to go down there and become a fireman. But here I am going, this is my job. This is what I want to do. And then quickly did I realize, I was like, I love this job. But from a financial standpoint, from a mental standpoint, from a physical standpoint, this job is going to kill me.
Yes.
Not forget the inherent dangers. Like, it's just a mentally grueling job. And had I not pursued that and recognized that and actually swing the bat to go do something else, I'd still be there today working as a fireman going, oh, this job blows. I should have done this. I should have done that. Too many people are too afraid. Like, they get into it and they're like, all right, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and they get into entrepreneurship. But like, shit, this really isn't for me. But then they
Right.
keep going down the path because they're too scared. And like, they told everyone they want to be entrepreneur. Or for me, it was like, I wanted to be a fireman. So I had this identity connected to me. And it was really hard when I started telling my friends, like, yeah, I'm going to invest in real estate. Oh, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. You're going to end up like one of these slumlords. We go into these houses all the time. I was like, no, man, I'm going to do it a little different. And then like, when I was like, I think I'm going to quit. They're like, you're an idiot. Like, you're going to give up your pension. I'm like, dude, Detroit went bankrupt. California went bankrupt. Private industries bankrupt. We can get into I don't want to make this about politics, but like
Right.
Social Security might go bankrupt, right? Like, you're going to rely on someone else for your retirement after you risked your life for 30 years. Like, that wasn't for me. And again, I think it goes back to recognizing where you are in your mental state and saying, you know what, it's okay to make a change. Let's go do it. So
Was there a pivotal point where you went, this is not for me? Like, I remember for me, when I started my first business, I remember just waking up in the middle of the night after a half an hour nap going, I don't think I want to work for anyone anymore. I think I'm going to come up with, another solution. And I started, looking for ways to get out of being a W-2. What made you all of a sudden go, hold on a second? Nope, not for me. Was it a particular day or experience?
It I know this sounds like ironic, but I actually like loved my job.
Right.
One of the first pivotal things that happened was 25 and sorry ladies, I know you might have a more of a female listener group, but it was like 30. It's like women just have to have babies. My eggs are dying, the
Right.
whole nine. And my wife's like, we're having kids. And I was like I don't even know what's going on. And then you start looking at daycare and what it home and like providing a lifestyle for your kids and whatever else, and you're like, holy shit, how does anyone afford this?
Right.
And that was like a mental like mind shift from a financial standpoint. But fast forward to the end, like when it was time to go and like move on to something else, like the pivotal thing was like I started to recognize, like, as we were growing our business, I didn't handle people telling me what to do very well anymore. And I was like, dude, I could go out and be our own boss.
Right.
And then like I come here and I get it's a paramilitary organization, but in the same sense, I'm like, I don't know, man, this really isn't for me. And it was more of a mind shift change again, because we really did love our jobs. But I would say starting to create a family and like looking at our future and what our legacy was probably a really early on indicator of like, I need to do something to support our family, because in our job as a fireman, um, the next day, like I could go to work and not come home the next day. And then it's like, when you
Exactly.
start thinking about it, it's like you have two kids. Now I have two kids, two beautiful daughters, my wife, supports, people who rely on us every day to do our job and provide for them, for their families with our employees. Let's say I created a business, and this is what really I started to think about is like we were landscaping, right? We were doing a bunch of landscaping. I was like, oh, maybe I'll scale and grow this. Then I'm like, what if I get killed at work? And then my wife has to be responsible to all these
Right.
customers and clients and be like, you're screwed. Whereas in real estate, if that same thing would have happened, I was like, well, my wife could continue to rent the real estate. She could sell the real estate. She has this well of cash that will provide for her. God forbid something happened to me or I was dismembered. And that was really the mental mind shift of like, I need to control my own destiny, because literally my life was on the line.
Right. Oh my goodness. Let me ask you a question. Can you take us back to your very first investment? What was that experience like?
Uh, it was it's funny now because like we do self-storage and multifamily, our asset volume that we deal with, just to give you frame of reference, like our average deal size is north of $1 million. Like the $1 to $10 million
Right.
range is like our wheelhouse. So go back 10 years, the first house I ever bought was $25,000. I put $25,000 into it. I did all the work. I had no clue if it was right or wrong. I'm out there, like this is very early on in YouTube University, like, all right, how do you plumb? And like, you're like sitting there, like,
Oh,
okay, I'm going to figure it out. Right. Like, doing stuff. It wasn't exactly right, but I did it and I
right.
got it done. So I bought a 2 bedroom, no, a 3 bedroom, 1 bath that was a complete gut in the east side of Baltimore in kind of a rough neighborhood. I bought it for 25,000. I borrowed money from a private lender, um, that hard money lender that charged me some astronomical rate. I mean, astronomical. I'm talking 15% and 5 points, which
Oh,
is insane. And I put $25,000 of my own cash into the deal to get it up and running. Like I said, I was in roughly around 50 grand, but I was getting 1250 in rent. So then when I refinanced it, my mortgage payment was only 600 and I was making $600 a month. And I didn't do stuff at scale. I didn't get it done fast. I didn't do it right, but I did it and I got that $600 a month and I was like, "Holy crap, man." Like when I go and work overtime for the fire department, one shift was worth an overtime shift was like net down to me like $200. I was like, "Wow, man, like I just covered 3 overtime shifts with one house. Like,
exactly.
this is insane. I need another one tomorrow." And after that first one, man, it was like it was an adrenaline rush, and it was like, wow, man, I need to do this again. It's like the first time you gamble or the first time people experience
Yeah.
something super fun. They're like, I got to go back. I got to do it again. That was so much fun. And I went back to the well, and that's just how we grew. But again, there was a lot of nervousness around it, but I was also at a point in my life. I was just shy of 30. I was like 29, somewhere in there. And I was like, you know what, man? Like, if I lose it all, like, I could just stay in the fire department. If I go bankrupt, so what? My credit's messed up. I've been in way worse places. Like, I didn't have a driver's license. I've been on the verge of bankruptcy before. Like, whatever, dude. Like, I'll figure it out. Like, to me, it was like, I have to do this because, again, my life was like literally on the line in my eyes. And that's kind of how I felt, man. It's like, I still feel it today. I still reminisce about that first property. So
Wow. How quickly did you purchase a second property?
it was within 6 months. So I got that first house done. We got the first house done, and then once it was stabilized and rented out, it was 6 months later, and I was like, dude, you got to remember here, I'm working in the fire department. That like 25 grand I put in was like the last 25 grand to my name. And I was out, dude. I was landscaping. I was hustling. I was working overtime. I was doing anything to get more cash to go do the next deal. And a house around the corner came up, similar price. And I was like, hey, let me do that. Started to figure some stuff out. And then house number 2 came 6 months later. House 3 and 4 came about a year later after the first one. And within a 2-year period, I grew to about a 10-house portfolio, which I think in a 2-year time frame is like really good, being a one-man band, not really know what I'm doing, just kind of feeling it out and trying to figure it out.
Wow. When did you decide to partner up with your friend who was also a firefighter?
Yeah, so Dan and I started in 2012. We grew up together in 2004. So somewhere in that like 1 to 10 house time frame. He was really good at electric work. I was like, hey man, can you do some electric work for me? And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I think he started to get the real estate itch. He's like, why am I working for this idiot? And I
Right.
was like, well, I don't blame you. So he started wholesaling properties. I kept doing my thing. And then he's like, hey man, I got this group of properties. This was in 2014. He's like, I want to wholesale the 3 and I want to flip the 1. And I was like, oh yeah, dude, like whatever, sounds cute. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And we did it. We did the 3 houses. We wholesaled them, and then we sold that last house off, and we had like a 6-figure, like we fixed and flipped the other house, and we had a 6-figure payday total off those 4 houses. And from there, about 6 months later, we did another flip together, and we're like, yo, let's formalize this. Let's go get cash. Let's go grow this. Let's go do something. And that's what we did. Off we went. And we never looked back. 2014 was like the official start of Equity Warehouse. And from there, we've grown a really big portfolio. We flipped about 100 single family houses. We have about 100 house single family house portfolio. And then since then, we've added multifamily and self storage, and it's just continued to grow. It's been really fun. It's crazy to think in 9 years what you can accomplish, or 10 years what you can accomplish, let alone like what does the next 20 or 30, 40 years hold for all of us. It's crazy to think the legacy and what we can create in such a short period of time.
That is absolutely amazing. And it's true what people say, start now. Forget about it. Just start it. Because if you don't start it, you're never going to. There's never the perfect time to start a business, to start a partnership. Now, your partnership was kind of organic. The way you guys met, you started working together. For our listeners who are thinking of looking for a partner or are considering a partnership, what are some important factors you consider when you're choosing a business partner?
Yeah, so for me, it worked out super well. For Dan and I, it worked out really good because naturally, well, first off, we're friends, and I know people say don't mix friend and business, but like you need to have a connection with the person that you're going to do business with. And friends and family is probably one of the hardest ones to do. But where we excelled is the fact that we're literally complete opposites. Like I'm a visionary, I'm a growth guy, I'm a go, 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 go. And Dan is very reserved. He's very cautious. His first answer to everything is no. I'm like, well, dude, we're about to get $1 million. No. Okay. Like we bought a 76 unit apartment building. And when the deal came in, I was like, hey, like they called me, they want to owner finance it. It's like a sweetheart deal. And he's like, it's bullshit. And I was like, all right, well,
Yes.
Dan, I'm going to take the meeting, dude. And that deal there changed our lives. But that's just you need that, right? Because I'm
Yes.
such a yes guy and he's such a no guy. Somewhere in the middle, we meet. And I tell everyone, and I get asked this question a lot, is like, what do you look for in partnerships? And I would say you need to look at yourself first. Go take a DISC personality test. A friend of mine, two guys over at Hard Money Bankers, who you might know,
Yes.
they tell me all the time, they taught me about the DISC personality test. And Jason and Chris have utilized it in their business very well, from raising capital and hiring employees. Well, it's the same thing. If you don't understand your personality type, you can't even begin to find a partner. I'm a huge D and I. I'm a let's go. I'm a visionary. I think everything's happy go lucky. And Dan's a D and an S. So he's supportive and he's always like, all right, well, is this right for the business? And that's where we meet. And it's great because he becomes the operator. I underwrite the deals and I'm the face. Beautiful face, shall I say?
Yeah.
But it works out. It works out. I got to find the baby face of where I don't have my beard from the
I
fire
can't even
department.
imagine that face. You without a
Yeah.
beard is would be insane.
Yeah, well, that's the first thing I did. But to stay on track is, it's that DISC personality test. I can't tell people enough is go out and learn it and understand yourself, and then find the person who supports you. If you have two people that are like D's and I's, right? Like when you get those guys together, there's no one to say no. And
Right.
sometimes it works out really well, but 9 times out of 10, it burns in a blaze of glory because it's go, 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 go. No one's watching the back of the house, and boom, it just blows up, right? And in the same sense, you have someone who's a C who's super cautious, and you have two C's together. You think they're ever going to get off the ground and actually go do a deal? No, they're going to sit there
Never.
and be like, these numbers don't work. These numbers don't work.
Right.
And they're never going to get off the ground. So you need to recognize, and that comes down to call it partnerships or call it hiring employees, call it whatever. You need to recognize where you're weak or where you need someone to tell you yes or no. And that could be anything from a partner to an employee to a banker to a private investor. It could be any one of those things and you start recognizing personalities really quick once you understand that DISC personality. And I think it's something that could be life-changing for anybody who's looking to get started in business or just wants to grow as a human being as a whole. And it makes life a lot easier when you start recognizing personality types.
Interesting. What's one unexpected big win that happened to you in the past year or so?
Okay. It's very easy to stay in business, but I'll tell you an
Yeah.
unexpected win is I volunteered to coach my daughter's softball team
How
as
old
an
is she?
assistant. My oldest is 8,
Okay.
and it was her first year playing, and she really wanted me to help. And I said, all right, I'll help out. But Shana, I have like a super busy schedule. I travel, like when we go visit our properties, I go to conferences, like I can't be a head coach. And she's like, okay, no problem. So the league calls up. They're like, hey, congratulations, you're the head coach. And I was like, no, like I can't do this, right? Like it's just like I don't have time. But I'll tell you this much, like every week I look forward to going out and helping the girls. I get to take the stuff that I learned in business and break it down to like the lowest of levels. That's not the right way to say it, but like I'm teaching an age group, 8 years old, of like talking about winning in a
Right.
society where we talk about everyone just participating. And I
Right.
get to talk about like doing the right thing and working on your personal well-being and practicing in a society today where it's like we don't reward those things anything. And it was just so cool to see the girls grow in a 12-month period or a 12-month period, like a 12-week period um, of how they grew in that 12 weeks. And I had the girls at the end, hey, did we win that game? How many runs did we score? What can we do better next time? And this is at 8. And I'm thinking, wow, man, like if they take softball this serious, like can they
Right.
take business or their life or whatever so serious? And it's just fun to see them have fun first and foremost. But second off, behind that, watching them like really get competitive and have that driving force. And it's just really cool to watch. And to me, that was one of my biggest wins in the past 12 months. And I know it probably should have been business or something else, but like I was talking, Michael, who you saw at the beginning of the podcast before we jumped on. He's a golf pro. And we have a golf studio here at our office that he works out of. And he coached our daughters are the same age group. he helped me coach, and we reflected every single week about like the girls changing, but even just me and Michael changing, of like working with them and becoming a better
Yeah.
coach and like helping them guide. And I think it just helps become a better parent. All that relates back to being a better coach and guide for our employees, for our investors, for our properties, of like being able to self-reflect, and all this stuff starts to work together once you figure it out. And you're like, well, I did that over there, I should have done
Yeah.
this over here, vice versa. And you're like, wow, it all starts to work.
That's one of the questions that I always ask mompreneurs or women that are trying to juggle work and family. And it's always very hard because I was actually called out by one of my listeners saying, you always ask the women how they have a balance between work and life, work and, their business, their personal life. But you never really ask the men how they keep it balanced. And I'm like, well, I don't really ask the men because they probably have good partners at home. And that's probably the answer to the question. But it's usually not. I think that a lot more dads are putting in effort to find that balance. Whereas,
Yeah.
years ago, the dad would go off working for, days at a time, come back once a week and then say hi and then leave again. So I do like the fact that you are keeping a good balance, right?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, it's a partner in business, it's a partner in life, it's a partner anywhere, and that it could be your wife or your significant other, it could be an employee. Like, they're all partners in my mind, right?
Right.
And I luck out that my wife is a godsend, and she takes care of the girls and she takes care of the house and she allows me to do a lot of stuff. But in exchange for that, I know when I've pushed the limit, like I'm going to Austin next week for an event, and it's like I'm pushing the limit because I got a lot of stuff going on this month. I
Right.
make sure that I carve out time so she has her free mental time, and vice versa. And I think that's something that's changed in society as a whole. Is that, I think people recognize that they need that mental headspace. And without my wife, I couldn't even head coach if I wanted to, right? Because she has to
Right.
take care of Isla, my youngest, right? At the same time. So having that partnership there allows for that, but balancing life is not easy, dude. Nobody's got to figure it out. And like so there's I mean, I'll be honest with you, because that's what I like to do.
Yes.
I get in fights with my wife. We all get in fights with our significant other.
Absolutely.
I don't care. I don't care. You could be married to whoever. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're gonna get in a fight, and our fights are, well, I take care of the girls all the time, and I'm like,
Right.
well, I gotta take care of the business. That's my child, because we need a
Mhm.
roof over our head. And then she's like, no, like, I just want time with you. And then, like, here's another one. If you guys want to do another, if you're doing the disc test, you might as well go do your love language test too, because
Okay.
my wife's love language is quality time, and mine is touch. And she's like, well, I'm not gonna like rub your back or like
Right.
have touch with you unless you give me quality time, because I don't feel loved and appreciated. And I'm like, yeah, but I was here, like I was home. She's like, yeah, but your phone was out. And like, I'm like, all right, so I'm not present. And I get it. So like when I get home, this thing, I try, it's really hard. If I get the girls go to bed around 8, 7, sometime between 7 and 8. So if I get home at 5, it's down for 3 hours. If I get home at 2, it's down for 6 hours. If I get home at 7:30, it is down for a half hour, but at least it's quality time with all three of my girls. Um, that's my two daughters and my wife, where it's quality time where this thing is not out. And if we're going to sit down and watch a show together, I try to keep this thing away, because it's just what she wants. And it's hard, man. Look, I'll be honest with you. It doesn't happen every day. Like,
Right.
straight up. I try. It's hard. We have a lot of responsibilities, but you're just doing the effort. It changes your relationship. Um, and it makes everything better for everyone. And when you're not fighting at home, it spills over into your business and the rest of your life, of like, oh, everything's good. And when I have this thing out all the time, I can tell you right now, there's a lot more fights. There's a lot more stress at work. There's a
Yep.
lot more blow ups. There's a lot more shit. And it is what it is. And you got to know how to navigate those things.
And from experience, I can tell you, being a stay-at-home mother, I was one for years, and I could not wait to get out. I could
Yeah.
not wait to get dressed and go to work and have lunch with actual people instead of eating my 3-year-old's leftover nuggets
Yeah.
from their lunch. Like it was insane. So I'm glad that you're at least trying to have that balance, and you value your partner just like you
Yeah.
value your business partner, you value your partner at home. And that's
Well,
incredibly important.
yeah, and it's even like, sometimes quality personal time for her is going to Whole Foods to go food
Right.
shopping. I'm like, "You really just wanna go by yourself?" She's like, "Yeah, I want 10 minutes to myself to go food shopping." I'm like, "Alright, I'll watch the girls," right?
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, "Well, I'll go because I want that extra 10 minutes," and she's like, "I'm going." I was like, "Alright, have fun, I'll put the girls." Finally warm out, I could put the girls in the pool, right? But in the same sense, there's some days where I'm like, how about all 4 of us go and we'll make it a family trip, right? Just because you need to figure
Right.
out, like, you need to read the room sometimes, and sometimes I get home, they're at war. Sometimes I get home, they're all happy-go-lucky, and I'm like, "Oh, thank God," it's hard, man. Kids aren't easy, and,
Yep.
looking back to our first investment of, like, my wife saying, "I wanna, like, I wanna have kids," and that, like, really mentally changed me was because I can't even imagine today if I was still a fireman and something happened to me and I left them behind and she had to deal with the kids and the business and everything else. And I think those are all things that you need to recognize where you're at in your life, what you want legacy to look like. If you weren't here, what does that look like?
Exactly. It's a scary thought. Now, when it comes to business, you explained to us that first you started with single family homes.
Yeah.
So now what do you lean towards? Are you leaning towards single family, multifamily, commercial? When it comes to your investments, like what is it that you're looking for?
Yeah, the majority of what we do is self-storage and multifamily now. We're not shy to look at single-family deals, just nothing's really fit our buy box. And honestly, now that we've created some scale, it doesn't make sense for us to take and use our time for that. The same way that you might not box your own stuff anymore,
Right.
and you send it to shipping station or something like that. So for us, it comes down to self-storage and multifamily. That's where we've done really well. There's a lot of runway in the self-storage market. There's
How
still
did
a
you
lot
get
of
into that market originally?
uh, you know, again, this goes back to my business partner being grounded in 2018, early 19. He's like, "Hey man, prices don't make sense anymore. We're going to concentrate on operations." And you can imagine a guy who's always looking for growth is like,
Right.
that's it. Like it's over. Our business is done. I can't do this. Like we're never going to grow again. And I'm like pulling the last of my little bit of hair out. I'm like, "Yo, dude, we got to do something." So I said, "You know what? Dan and our project manager, Ryan, my business partner, Dan, and my project manager, Ryan, really took operations head on. And I did a lot of the support stuff, taxes, and all the other goofy stuff. But I also freed me up a ton of time to go back to YouTube University and go to some events and learn about storage and multifamily and a few other things. And when I did that, that's really where um, we started to cut our teeth and learning from other experts. And we're in a tougher market. We're in Baltimore, Maryland, a lot of our residential and post riots and everything that happened there, the cities gets a little interesting sometimes.
Right.
And we had some investors who wanted to deploy some capital and we just said, "Hey, we can get some market diversification through investing in storage in other jurisdictions. There's not this heavy when you deal with residential real estate, you have to be at everyone's beck and call.
Right.
The heat doesn't work, the toilet doesn't work." It was like, well, if I'm going to own properties outside of Baltimore, Maryland, where we don't have our own staff, I want it to be something simple, like industrial or outside storage. And we stumbled on self storage, and there was a lot of growth opportunity and market diversification. And that's really what attracted us to self storage. And we're going to continue to grow in that vertical. And then in Baltimore, we just like to grow our multifamily portfolio because we already have staff, systems, and everything else in place that makes life easy to put a new property into the system.
I love that. What key pieces of advice would you give to someone who's considering entering the world of real estate investing?
It's not HGTV.
Mhm.
Every guru that tells you, yeah, everyone that tells you, here's a good. they,
That's so
it's
true.
funny because people really think that. Like, and I laugh, and like where we are in Baltimore when we were flipping houses, we would see all the DC guys come in with their bags of money. We would see the New Yorkers, see all the New Yorkers come down with their bags of money,
Hey.
right? And we're like, "Yo, like it's not like this. Like it's a gritty town. You got to kind of know some
Yeah.
people and you got to do your thing. It's not all about money." But what I would tell people is accountants, or a lot of people like to use the word real estate and passive synonymously. Um, and
Right.
it's not. And I don't care if you have a property manager in place. I don't care if you're managing your own thing. It's not passive. None of it's passive. You are always actively working towards your goals. So if you're going to actively do it, then you should get active returns. If you're going to have a property manager in place, you're actively managing your manager. If you're investing with someone like us or someone like Jason and Chris or whoever, if you're actively investing there, you're you're passively investing there. You're actively managing the sponsors of those deals to make sure the stuff is going right. Too many people, and you see it a lot. I'm just going to throw my money in the stock market.
Yes.
Okay. You know nothing about this billion-dollar company, right? Like, and then you're buying a tenth of a tenth of a tenth of a tenth, and they could go bankrupt tomorrow, and it's all okay, and the money's vanished. But then you got a guy like me who's like grinding it out and like going to show you everything, and you own a nice
Exactly.
little piece of something, and you can pick up the phone and call me and understand what's going on. And they're too afraid to do that. And yes, if the money vanished, like at least you could come find me and beat me up, right?
Right.
Like, but in the same sense, you know where the properties are. You actually tangibly know what you're buying. And for some reason, people are too
Exactly.
afraid to invest in those deals. And it's like, you know what, man? Like, look for alternative investments from the stock market. And to go back to your original question, is it's not passive. I just promise you, it's active. It all sucks. It doesn't all suck, but it all sucks. Like that's how the mindset you have to have. It's all going to go wrong. How are you going to handle it? Get in there and do it. And that was our competitive advantage. We were firemen. Everyone says, well, what do you think your success was? We were dumb enough to go back to the well. Like we got to go back and do it over and over and over and over again to make sure that the things work, right? Because it's not passive. It's taxed passively, but it's not a passive investment. You have to make your money work for you.
That is amazing. What's your 5-year goal? I love hearing this.
I wish my beard would get down to at least like my
Oh,
belly button,
Jesus,
but I don't know if that'll happen.
no. We're gonna have to place a bet at one point. I'm gonna bet you
Yeah.
against something that, I won't likely win, but maybe I will, and I'll be like, "You gotta
Yeah.
shave off the beard."
Oh, no. Oh, God. All right. Well, this needs to be a sure thing for me because everyone used to say, they said, okay, I don't know how PG your audience is, but we got drug
They're
tested at
not.
work, and everyone said, hey man, so like you quit, like what, did you go smoke weed first? I was like,
Right.
no, dude, I threw my razor out and then I took a little hit of weed just because I hadn't done it in
You
15
might as
years. And I
well.
just wanted to, yeah, might as well see what it's all about. But no, first thing I did was throw my razor out. I said, I'm never shaving again. Just
How does your
never
wife feel
again.
about this decision that you have made?
She prefers the beard over,
Okay.
my baby face. I think because it hides my extra chins, so maybe she
And
thinks I
that's
look
all that
skinnier.
matters. As long as she
That's
prefers
right.
it, that's all that matters.
Yep. So either way, it's fun. If you check out Squarespace Storage, our storage brand, we made a
Yeah.
little emoji character who looks like me. So that's been fun too.
Okay.
But the 5-year goal is just to continue to grow, not only in business but as a human being. Growth isn't just buying more properties. I do see a trajectory that we continue to build and grow our portfolio, but growth's also execution of what we have today. Growth is, learning more about yourself and growing as a human being. Growth is, anything that you want it to be. Too many people describe growth and buying more shit and making more money
Right.
together. And that's not how I see it. I see it as evolving as a human being, being supportive to our team, being supportive to my family. And if along the way we buy more properties and we do make more money, that's okay too. But really just executing on what we have. And if in 5 years our team doubled, I'd be happy. And if in 5 years our team was the same size and we're all still here today, I would absolutely love that. We look at everything from a legacy standpoint that when someone comes and works with us, like you're here, like I hope you stay. We're here to
Exactly.
provide you with what you need to succeed, and we don't micromanage. And like I said, in 5 years, if it's the same team and we're still doing our thing, I would absolutely love that. So as much as a visionary I am, I don't necessarily write down like super target goals. I like to think about like
Right.
experiences and thoughts of like what it looks like, not so much I have to have $100 million of real estate in 5 years. Like it's a good way to get started, but then over time you start to think more about like the holistic, like how it all works together is kind of what I think about.
Do you believe in vision boards?
Um I do. I believe a lot in manifestation. I believe a lot in, like meditating or whatever gets you into that mental state that motivates you. I did early on, and I didn't do like a traditional vision board. What I did was I really wanted a boat, so it went in on my background, and it just sat on my background until we finally bought a boat. Now we have 2 boats and 2 jet skis
Wow.
at a house that we have on a water, right? Like Dan and I have lucked out on that. And then I wanted to learn how to fly. So then I put a plane, and now a plane lives on one of my backgrounds, and I look at planes every day because one day I want to buy a plane. Um, but yes, I think vision is huge. I think setting down goals to break your mindset to get out of the W-2 thought process goes a long way. And if that's what it takes for you to get over the hump, then do it. I'm a little hippie. I don't have any crystals here, but I
Mm.
got the crystals. I got all the fun stuff around the house. I keep the sage, and I
Yes.
do like to go out front, especially in the morning. First thing in the morning, at night, I have a nice covered porch, and I just sit out there and I just kind of think about like, what does it look like? I'm not really, as you guys can tell, I'm a much better talker than I am a writer. So I like to talk it more into existence than I necessarily like writing
Right.
into an existence. But again, as you go down this personal development journey of disc and love languages and everything else, figure out if you like talking or if you like writing better. And it's just a way to outlet more stuff for you. I have few people I call every day. One of them very well. I call Jason almost every
Hmm.
day, and
Yes.
we talk about business and growth and like future, and that's my outlet to kind of speak it into existence and work through ideas. And that's my outlet. So yes, the answer is that's a long-winded answer to yes, I believe in vision boards, but don't stay traditional and say I have to go cut
Right.
out this picture and stick it on a board.
Right.
Figure out what works for you.
Yeah, no, and Jason Valen is a great person to like throw ideas at just to see if one of them will stick on the Balin board.
Yeah,
Yeah, I used to work in their office, as you know, and
yeah,
that was one of the highlights of my day, just to pick his brain a little bit, every day. Let me ask you a question here, and this is
sure.
one of the last questions. If you could go back in time, what would you tell your 19-year-old self?
Trust what you're thinking. Trust what you're thinking 100% and go do it. Um, when I was dating my wife at the time, it was probably early 20s, and she had bought a house and she had a chance to leverage it up. And I was like, we should go use that money and go buy another house. And, we kind of did some other stuff with it. And I was like, damn it, we should have bought another house. And this was like early '08, or pre '08. So it's like '05, '06. I was like, man, like we could have, I just go back and think about it. It was like I had the right hunch. I should have trusted my
Right.
instinct and done it. And if you're feeling something, I tell everybody is like, if you're feeling something, go do it. Trust your instincts. Go do it. Swing the bat. And uh, at 19, I personally wasn't mature enough to do it, but I think some people are, and it takes a lot to think about like all the everyone always says, "Oh, if I go back to high school, I would have done this, and this," and
Right.
it is true. Is like to go back and be able to reflect on that and then say like, man, at 19 I had that instinct. I really need to trust myself at 40 now that like my instinct was correct there. I should trust that all the way through. That's what I would tell myself is just trust what you're thinking, trust your instinct, and go do it. Go swing the bat. Those are the 2 best things you could tell yourself.
That's some great advice. Where can our listeners find you, whether it's to follow your journey or contact you for business opportunities?
Yeah, the best place is we're on all the social sites, Equity Warehouse. You can find us on all the social sites. Or if you want to DM us, I'm bigger on Instagram. It's my platform that I enjoy to converse with people. You can DM us on Instagram. It's at Equity Warehouse. Or you can check out equitywarehouse.com if you want to see any of our investment opportunities and some case studies of how we've co-invest with some of our friends and family on these multi-million-dollar multifamily and self-storage deals. We can't do it without them. So check us out. And I really appreciate you having me on. This has been really fun.
Thank you for having
And
me. Thank you
hey,
for finding me.
I got a woman to interview me on my perspective on life. And I was like, oh, this feels nice. And me and my wife don't have to get in a fight about it. I was like, I'm going
Mm-mm.
to show her this podcast. Like, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I try to get out of my mouth every
Yeah,
time when I'm talking to you. So
this is your love
it's been
language.
fun. Yeah, this is it. This is it.
Thank
So,
you so much for having a little chat with me. And I really appreciate it. And I hope you come back on very, very soon. Thank you
oh,
to all our listeners for tuning in. And remember to follow Julixa Media on all social media platforms. Until next time.